Tonight on College Press Box, Rick Barnes departs from Texas.
The Texas relays were in full swing.
And Texas Swimming and Diving wins another national championship. All this and more on College Press Box. Good evening and thank you for tuning in to College Press Box. I'm Alanis King alongside Cooper Irwin, and we've got a great show planned for you guys tonight.
Indeed we do. It was a very busy week here on the 40 acres.
It was, and while the Longhorn track team was running at Texas Relays last week, your very own College Press Box team was out preparing a rundown of all the latest news in Texas sports. Cooper, what were your thoughts on all the action on campus last week?
It was kind of sad watching the NCAA tournament with Texas already being out, and my bracket was already busted too, so not too much interest there. But the Texas Relays were very exciting, and also congratulations are in order to the Longhorn Swimming for their last championship. And lastly, Miles Turner announced that he was declaring for the draft today. It's a big blow to the Texas team, but Miles will probably be a lottery pick.
And we'll start off with some news of a big farewell tonight. A tenure of 17 years ends for basketball coach Rick Barnes, as announced on Saturday. The Longhorns will be on the search for a new coach next season, despite Barnes reporting that he was told he would return for another year following the loss to Butler in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Barnes leaves a legacy of 402 wins, 3 Big 12 regular season titles, and 16 NCAA championship berths behind him at Texas, and the coach told ESPN that he would like to coach again but wouldn't say where. A national search for a new Texas coach has begun, with Greg Marshall of Wichita State and Shaka Smart of VCU as the frontrunners. In the studio tonight to discuss the news of Rick Barnes is College Press Box's own Reese Miller. Reese, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for having me a part of it.
And I'm doing well also, and so was Coach Rick Barnes for much of his career. Before we get into the departure news, though, Reese, what can you say about his time at Texas?
Well, it's not really about what happens now. It's about the legacy Rick Barnes leaves behind. And Rick came into the Texas program at a time when this was maybe a top 25 job, maybe a top 30 job, really in shambles. And Barnes took it and now made it what it is, which is a top 10 basketball job. He's recruited, became the first school to send 2 back-to-back players to the NBA draft in the top 2 picks. 16 tournaments, 16 players drafted. It's about what Barnes turned the Texas program into, and I think it's really about the legacy of what he left behind. And he transformed this program entirely into something new, and that's what I'll always remember for, and really the class he did it with. You saw that even in his last press conference, and I think that's how I'll remember Rick Barnes' tenure here.
And yeah, I agree with Reese. I mean, in 17 years, he makes 16 NCAA tournament appearances. That's really good. He showed that he could recruit well, getting NBA players the likes of Kevin Durant, DJ Augustine, Avery Bradley, LaMarcus Aldridge, and even Miles Turner this year. And Barnes, while he fell off a little bit towards the end, he left behind the job better than what it was when he got it.
He definitely did. And during that time, what would you define as Coach Barnes' best moment at Texas, Reese?
For me, I might pick a little underrated one. I think it's one season ago when Texas was the preseason number 8 overall pick in the Big 12 and obviously exceeded expectations, ended up finishing 3rd, earning that number 7 overall seed, and ended up knocking off Arizona State, yes, a 10 seed, in that NCAA tournament first round a year ago with the Cam Ridley last-second hook shot. I really think the way he took that, overachieved the Big 12 Coach of the Year, that's how I'll remember Rick Barnes, and the way he overachieved with a team of really nobodies, or so it seemed to be, and how he ended up doing that. That's, I think, the most significant moment, because it looked like just when the program had faltered, it had fallen back to that mid-90s range. Rick elevated that really with a team that wasn't expected to do much at all.
And I'll say my best moment was in 2003 when Barnes took Texas to the Final Four on a team led by TJ Ford. And that's as far as Texas has ever made it in the tournament. And so that really solidified Barnes as a top coach in the NCAA. And Texas as a rising basketball program, and that's what has allowed them to recruit the way they do today.
Well, you know, being from Aggieland myself, I'm definitely going to have to go with that last matchup against Texas A&M in 2012. The Longhorns delivered the Aggies a 70-68 defeat at home in College Station, and that was the last meetup. It's always a fun one to bring up. But things eventually started going downhill somewhere along the way, or else we wouldn't be discussing the recent situation. Reese, where exactly did things start going wrong for Barnes?
Right. To me, Rick Barnes is really a victim of his own success and the expectations that he set himself by overachieving for years. In his first 8 years, 3 Big 12 titles, 2 of them shared. He had 5 Sweet 16 berths in the last 7 years, none of those only 3 tournament victories. So he raised the bar so much here at the Texas program, and he really fell victim to falling short of those standards. It also really goes to say how great of a recruiter Rick Barnes was, and when you get those top players from this state and you set that expectations high, especially in preseason, and you fall short of that, it's a lot easier to speculate. There's a lot more fire around that job, and you know, when you raise expectations like that, you can fall a lot shorter of them and really get yourself into trouble. And I think that's what ultimately plagued Rick Barnes.
And yeah, I think things started to go the wrong way after 2008. Texas hasn't made it past the second round since then. And it seems like Barnes always has great talent on the team with his recruiting, but lately the teams have underperformed. When Texas had Kevin Durant, they didn't make it to the Sweet 16, and this year was kind of the final straw. A team that was expected to be a top 10 team in the preseason struggled to just make the tournament and lost in the first round.
And as sad as it is, tenure can't really overdo underperformance. But looking towards the future, we mentioned 2 frontrunners to replace Barnes earlier in the show, Greg Marshall and Shaka Smart. What are your thoughts on the leading candidates, Reese?
I think Texas can really hit a home run on either hire. Shaka Smart, Greg Marshall, who have way outperformed expectations at Wichita State and VCU. You take a look at a guy like Archie Miller at Dayton, another guy that outperformed, recruited pretty well in tough grounds, and really made it some nice tournament runs. Although today, several Texas players following Mark Jackson on Twitter, take that what you will. Of course, Steve Patterson, with that NBA background, maybe looking to bring a former NBA coach in. I think Shaka Smart is your #1 guy right now, and I think it would be a home run hire, especially the way that guy can recruit against some of the top teams. You get him with some DFW-type talent here at Texas, watch out.
And yeah, I think either of the 2 would be a tremendous pickup. They've both led smaller schools in Wichita State and VCU on very long March Madness runs. I think Marshall will be an interesting pickup just because of the rivalry he has with Kansas coach Bill Self, and so that would really spice up the UT-Kansas rivalry.
Well, it's certainly exciting to look towards the future, and thanks for your input, guys. Reese, we look forward to seeing you back on again later in tonight's show to talk about some women's basketball.
Thank you, guys. See you soon.
And coming up, swimming and diving adds another championship to their stacked resume, and Texas relays were in full swing last weekend. Welcome back to College Press Box, and thanks for sticking with us. The tower glowed orange yet again this weekend, this time for the Texas men's swimming and diving team. Leading the meet from start to finish and claiming their 11th NCAA title, the Longhorns posted 528 team points during the competition, besting second-place team reigning NCAA champions California by 129 points. In earning that win, the Longhorns also experienced a few firsts. Sophomore Clark Smith became the first Texas NCAA champion in the 500-yard freestyle, and in the 100-yard butterfly, the Longhorns became the first team in history to place 6 finalists in a single NCAA championships event.
The Texas relays were held this weekend on the 40 acres. The relays featured the best track athletes from high school, college, and international ranks. Over the 4-day event, 11 and 7 facility records were broken. One record was broken by a future Longhorn. The record fell Saturday in the high school boys triple jump. Kerwin Roach, a University of Texas 2015 basketball signee, broke the meet record with a jump of 50 feet 8 inches. The standout from Galena Park North Shore High School snapped the record of Mark Jackson of Taylor High School, who went 50 feet 6 inches in 2010.
And the baseball team had a tough pill to swallow this weekend on the road, facing off against Nebraska and coming up short in all 3 games of the series, falling to the Cornhuskers sweep for the first time since 1999. On Friday, Texas posted a single run, giving Nebraska a 3-1 victory. Saturday saw a fairly low-scoring game as well, with the Cornhuskers delivering a 1-0 defeat to the Horns over 15 innings of play. Nebraska closed out the sweep on Sunday, with the Longhorns falling in a 6-2 loss. With a now 17-11 season record, the team heads back out to the home field tomorrow night to face off against Texas A&M Corpus Christi.
Texas softball faced off against number 22 Kansas over the weekend. Texas came to play, though, as they swept Kansas by scores of 6-0, 11-5, and 7-5. The wins moved the Longhorns' record to 23-9 and 3-0 in the Big 12. The final nail to complete the sweep came Sunday when Lindsey Stevens hit a 2-run jack in the 5th inning, her 9th home run of the season. Texas is on a 5-game winning streak and looks to continue that momentum when they take on Houston in their next game.
The same success couldn't be found for the Texas women's basketball team this weekend. However, taking on the first-ranked University of Connecticut in the Sweet 16 on Saturday, the Longhorns logged a defeat that saw UConn take it into the triple digits. Despite advancing the farthest into the NCAA championship and posting the best win record at 24 for the first time since the 2003-2004 season, the Lady Longhorns let the Huskies take the lead early and hold it. Closing out the game in Texas' championship run in that same fashion, UConn defeated the Longhorns 105-54. But like always, the final score can't tell us everything about what happened in the game. Cooper, where exactly did Texas go wrong?
I mean, it's really a question of talent. UConn's women's team only had 1 loss on the entire season. They're probably the best team in the country right now, and to be honest, I mean, it was a lack of talent, and that was a key factor in the loss. And then UConn just shot really well from the field. They scored over 100 points, and with that offensive output, it's really hard to beat a team.
And we have Reese back in the studio with us again to talk some women's basketball as well. Reese, in your opinion, where did that game get so out of control?
Right, well, it was really in that middle part of the first half. Texas was only down 7 points, had fought back to 26-19. From that point on, UConn went on a 44-9 run. Quite frankly, they're just better at every single facet of the game. They're better coached, they have better talent. And look, Texas, there's a lot of positive things to take away from them from this tournament run, from the way they finished not winning 9 of 11 games on that final stretch, losing to Baylor in the Big 12 tournament championship. But either way, UConn is the best team in the country, the best program in women's basketball. And, of course, you would have liked, if you're a Texas fan, not to see it be the largest margin of victory in Sweet 16 history. But either way, a positive step for Texas, who saw its first berth in the Sweet 16 since 2004.
And even with the UConn game, the women's team had a really successful year. Reese, how would you rate this season?
It's hard to give it a true grade because of all the injuries this team dealt with. 37 total injuries, divvied up between about 9 players, and that includes losing Nneka Npaoli and Nakia Jones for the season. And those are 2 of your main scorers for this Texas basketball team. Meanwhile, Amani McGee-Stafford missed the first 8 weeks of the season, so there was a lot of lineup shuffling that Karen Atson had to do with this team. So overall, I'll give a solid B grade just because of the way they were able to close out. Remember, this team was all the way up to number 3 in the country, 13-0. They then lost 8 of their next 10 games before winning 9 of 11, vaulting them into that Sweet 16 spot. So overall, I give a heck of a job, a pat on the back to Karen Atson for turning this ship around when it looked like after rising all the way up to number 3, they might not even be a part of the postseason conversation.
And yeah, I think this season was very successful for Texas. The injuries really did hurt, but making it to the Sweet 16 is always a positive, and it'll be something to build off of heading into next year.
Definitely overcoming adversity and performing as well as they have in about a decade. As always, thanks for joining us in the studio tonight, Reese.
As always, thanks for having me, guys.
And coming up next, we'll have Matthew Adams in the studio to give us insight on all the sights, sounds, and stats from Pro Day. You won't want to miss it.
Welcome back to College Press Box. Texas's Pro Day was earlier this week. TSTV's own Matthew Adams was in the field covering the action.
The 2014 NFL Draft was a dismal one for the Texas Longhorns, with 0 players being drafted. The last time this happened was 1937. 2015, however, looks to be a much better year for the Texas Longhorns. Just last month, 5 players participated in the NFL Combine, and several of them already helped boost their draft stock. Here at UT Pro Day, many more draft-eligible players came out trying to prove why they still deserve to play this game they love. Quandre Diggs focused on his position drills, where he showed off his quick feet and strong hands. Afterwards, Diggs addressed what position he is expected to play at the next level.
Everybody's talking about slot corner, but you get on the team, let me go play slot, and then I can play outside. So I just need a chance, need a shot. And, I think it's going to come in the draft. And, I think it'll surprise a lot of people. Defensive tackle Malcolm Brown relied on his combine results while he took part in position drills. He continued to impress scouts and coaches with both his speed and strength, as they feel he is a first-round pick. Brown, on the other hand, is not worried about the pressures of going in the first round.
Get out, coming out of high school, I was highly recruited, but then at the end of the day, you got to block that out and you got to play your game. You can't let that stuff get to your head. You can't get big-headed. You just got to stay humble and just work like you and the other guy.
Both wide receivers, John Harris and Jackson Shipley, had good performances after missing out on the combine. Harris finished around a 4.5 in the 40-yard dash, while Shipley in the event clocked around a 4.45. Both receivers showed off smooth route running abilities and their hands that Texas relied on last season. Shipley admitted this was a huge day to see where he stands against other top receivers.
A few guys just came up to me, and a few of them told me some of my times, but they thought I had a really good day. So for me, that's something looking forward. That's huge because I didn't really know where I stood as far as numbers wise, and where I stood among some of those other guys, some of the other top receivers.
And we're lucky enough to have Matthew in the studio with us to discuss all the action from Pro Day. Matthew, how are you tonight?
I'm doing good, thanks Alanis.
And now, since you were right there for all of the action, tell us, who showed out on Pro Day this year?
Well, definitely the most obvious one that stands out is defensive tackle Malcolm Brown. He didn't need to prove a lot other than just keep working on his technique and proving to defensive scouts that he really is a first-round pick. Also, Jordan Hicks really stepped up his game, showing more instinct.
I agree. Malcolm Brown and Jordan Hicks showed why they should be early round picks in the NFL draft, and they showed out at Pro Day.
And I'd say the real question is now, if you're an NFL general manager, who are you keeping your eye on in future rounds, Matthew?
I'm definitely keeping on the later rounds, running back Malcolm Brown and wide receiver John Harris. Malcolm Brown, been considered just a tough yardage guy, get the short yards, but he really showed in both the Combine and at the Pro Day stepping up that he can be a faster running back and he can take on more loads. John Harris, he's a physical receiver, he's got good size, but he still needs to work on cleaning up his route running and just continue to get stronger here in the NFL.
And I agree. Malcolm Brown is a running back. Running backs are sometimes valued lower in the NFL, so he might go in the later rounds, but he can provide value for teams, especially in short yardage situations. And then John Harris, he came on really last year, so he wasn't as looked at and scouted by the NFL, but he's showing that he can be a very valuable receiver.
And those are some great points about scouting, but let's take it back to looking forward to next year on campus. Spring football has started, and what are your thoughts on Tyrone Swoops versus Gerard Hurd, Matthew?
Well, so far the reports are coming out of camp. Swoops is playing like the better quarterback. Hurd is showing some inconsistencies in his reads. He's checking off rather than looking at all his options. He's taking off and running with the ball, and that's all great, but Hurd is showing he's stepping up and being a leader, and he is making the better decisions.
And Swoops right now is the front runner for the job, but I would say it's pretty wide open at this point. Hurd, if he can prove that he can step up and make better reads, and he has all summer to do that, he might make a late run for the job.
And now, in a more general sense, Matthew, what are your overall spring expectations?
Well, as Coach Strong said, all positions are open here. And looking at Coach Strong, what he said, that's for sure. Obviously, Swoops and Hurd is going to be the battle to watch, and Swoops will take that job heading into summer, but it is his to lose. There are a lot of other positions to fill, such as Shipley, Harris, and Malcolm Brown. Gray can certainly fill Malcolm's hole, but the receivers, soon-to-be sophomores such as Lorenzo Joe, Dorian Leonard, and Roderick Bernard are going to have to step up. Defensively, plenty of holes to fill, and linebackers certainly lack experience. Incoming freshman Malik Jefferson has looked good so far in spring ball, and he will head into the fall, gain some more playing time. Diggs is also in the secondary, a huge one to lose, but Duke Thomas, a senior, appears to be carrying the DBs right now.
Yeah, I mean, the quarterback controversy, not really, but whoever wins the quarterback job, that's probably the biggest and most important thing for this Texas team. That's been the most inconsistent part of this football team leading to its demise, and if they can find a quarterback for the future, that would be great. Also, finding out how to replace receivers like John Harris and Shipley, that'll be interesting to see. And it'll be interesting to see what recruits that Coach Strong got in his second class step up and earn playing time.
And great input as always, guys. Thanks for joining us on the show tonight, Matthew.
Thank you. Glad to be on.
And coming up next, former Longhorn TJ Ford hosts his own basketball camp, and we'll take a look at what is happening this week in Longhorn sports.
We're back, and now we're going to take a few minutes to talk about the younger generation of sports stars who attended the TJ Ford Invitational. Michelle Sanchez from Texas News Watch has more on the story.
March Madness kicks off every spring, featuring some of the top college players in the country. Former UT NCAA star player TJ Ford also hosts his own competitive tournament for high school students who need financial assistance.
We're trying to put them on a platform where they can showcase themselves and at the same time be in a good, positive environment.
The TJ Ford Invitational does not only focus on developing young basketball players, but it teaches them how to make long-term goals outside of sports.
This whole thing is about teaching kids life skills through the game of basketball. You know, for me, that's on the court and also off the court.
TJ Ford basketball helps kids from inner-city areas of Houston that have financial struggles, like Yeskin Williams, who is from 3rd Ward.
TJ Ford had taught me how to be a man and how to fight through adversity and, play hard, work hard.
Williams says he aspires to be like LeBron James, who also grew up without a father and in a hard neighborhood. But if things don't fall his way, he will keep his options open.
I was thinking about being an engineer, but, I have to, think about it a little more. I'm only a sophomore.
I get on them about more than just basketball. Sometimes they open up to me more than their parents, and I have to be there and give them the right information.
Ford says that way or the other, these kids' dreams can come true.
Some people just look at the talent of the kid and not the actual kid. So with us, we try to prepare you for the good, the bad, and the ugly.
For Texas News Watch, I'm Michelle Sanchez.
1, 2, 3, together we can.
Now let's take a look at what Longhorn sporting events are coming up this week.
On Tuesday, March 31st, you can catch baseball versus Texas A&M Corpus Christi on the Longhorn Network. Wednesday, the 1st of April, softball at Houston at 6 p.m. And Friday the 3rd, softball will be at Texas State at 6 p.m. You can catch volleyball versus SMU at 6 p.m. on the Longhorn Network. And then baseball will be at Oklahoma State at 7 p.m.
Then Friday and Saturday, track and field / cross country are at the Stanford Invitational. Saturday, women's tennis takes on Ohio State. Softball takes on Texas State at 1 p.m. You can catch that on the Longhorn Network. Men's tennis takes on Texas Tech at 3. That is also on the Longhorn Network. Baseball is at Oklahoma State at 6:30. You can check that out on ESPNU. And rowing takes on SMU in Kansas State.
The weekend will also be full of golf. The men's golf team will be at the Augusta Collegiate Invitational Saturday and Sunday. And then Sunday, baseball will be at Oklahoma State at 1 p.m. on ESPNU. And women's golf will be at the UTSA matchup.
And as Rick Barnes' career at Texas comes to a conclusion, former Texas standout TJ Ford took time to honor the former coach. And you can see that tweet right there. It says, "If I was with Coach Barnes right now, I know this moment would be the same. Our bond is unbreakable."
And, you know, Cooper, I've had some coaches who I wouldn't exactly describe our bond like that. That really shows how much of a bond that Coach Barnes could create with his players.
It does. It really, Coach Barnes had great relationships with his players, and that they really do love him. And do you have any major plans for this week, Alanis?
Actually, I'm planning on taking the rest of this week to rest up before I head out to Texas Motor Speedway next week. What about you, Cooper?
That sounds nice. I have a couple tests this week, so I'll be studying, unfortunately.
Sounds
portion.
Sounds pretty typical. We hope that you all have exciting weeks planned ahead as well. And thanks for tuning in to College Press Box. You can catch us here on TSTV every Monday night at 9:30, and make sure to follow us on Twitter at College Press Box. And for the best sports debates on the 40 acres, tune into College Crossfire on Wednesdays at 9 p.m. You can follow them on Twitter too at College Xfire. From everyone here in the studio, Master Control, Cooper, and myself, have a great night.
Same time shine for all the dope boys pushing on the grind, for all the dope girls keeping them in line.